What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Sports Weekly Podcast here with the Iowa State Daily. I am Brett Fulmeyer. I'll be your host once again, and I'll be joined by my co-hosts. I'll have them introduce themselves.
What's up, guys? Assistant Sports Editor Pavel Markovic back.
Sports reporter Caden Storm.
Gentlemen, Iowa State is 6-0 for the first time since 1938.
It feels like 38, baby.
Feels like 38. And it could still feel like 38 if Iowa State wins next week, because 1938 is also the last and only time Iowa State started the season 7-0.
What does it feel like if they win 8 straight?
Feels like 2024.
That's it.
Yeah, it never happened before, right?
No, they've never gone 8-0. But we're getting way ahead of ourselves here.
Yeah, it started
way ahead of ourselves here.
With a bang.
Yeah. Let's start with the game that got them to 6-0, that being the 28-16 win over West Virginia on Saturday on the road in the Coal Rush game. This was probably the toughest environment next to the Iowa game that they've faced this season. Pavle, what stuck out to you?
Well, aside from the fact that we won, but that's pretty obvious.
That's a given.
Yeah, true.
It's a given.
Yeah, but I feel like what stuck out to me the most was obviously Carson Hansen.
100%.
The running game is always a revolving door. Like we said, we like the running back room by committee, but we had, and it worked out like this. Carson Hansen ended up being the hot hand in this game, and he led the game with 3, got the hat trick for touchdowns. So that really was crucial. Obviously, only scoring 4 touchdowns in the entire game, and Carson Hansen was, I think, the North Dakota game where he got 3 touchdowns. No, it was Arkansas State.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting ahead of myself.
You got 2 there.
Yeah, he got 2 there, yeah. So, seeing Carson Hansen, because the last couple weeks, he's been performing well, but obviously couldn't find the end zone because Jalen Jackson last week and, Abu Sama and Jalen Jackson in Houston. So I think it was amazing to see him, get his touchdown ways back from when he did play against Arkansas State and had that big game. So, yeah, I would definitely say at least Carson Hansen for sure.
Caden, you?
I mean, it is Carson Hansen. He is what stood out, but I can almost go with the opposite. And it's the lack of Abu Sama.
Yeah.
2 carries, 6 yards. And it's not like he played – you can't say he played bad in this game because he didn't play.
Mm-hmm.
And so that really raised an eyebrow for me. He started off the game. I think the first play of the game was to Sama.
Yeah.
So it's not like they went into the game being like, you're not playing. So I don't know what changed after just two carries, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear that they were rolling with Hansen and Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, that lack of production has been there, but again, when he doesn't get the ball, he doesn't really have the opportunity to try and produce anything. Jalen Jackson's numbers were a little off to me in this game. He did have 12 carries, so he did get the ball, significantly less than Hansen, but definitely significantly more than Sama. This was really the most spread out, it felt like the carries were. Hansen had 20, Jackson with 12, and then Sama with just the 2. But Jalen Jackson only 19 yards on those 12 carries, only 1.6 yards. But when you have at least one guy like Carson Hansen running the ball well, scoring touchdowns, the other guys can have an off night.
Yeah, that's true. Like you just said, we don't have to have all 3 of them on the go. We would obviously like to see all 3 of them have the same amount of success, but you can't really establish that in the game because we have the passing aspect, which we'll talk about later with Rocco Becht in the receiving game. So it's really just one man always stepping up, having the hot hand every night, and it was Hansen's night this past Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Hansen once again was right there to get to that 100-yard mark too. Mm-hmm. He was so close, but I think those touchdowns definitely made up for it.
Oh, 100%. I'll take the hat trick of touchdowns any day than having 100 yards rushing and no touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, when you do have the hot hand like that, I guess that's what leads to Abu Sama only getting 2 carries.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it still says something. I mean, they still gave Jackson the ball, though.
They did.
So I think they showed a clear preference for at least between Jackson and Sama. You can say, yes, Hansen was the hot hand. He's going to get the majority of the carries, which is fine. But, I mean, they showed who their second back is in that game and who they probably trust more overall.
I like what you said there because I think looking through the rest of the season, you could maybe trace it back to this game being the one where they kind of have Abu take a back seat to Hansen and Jackson. I know Abu has started every game, he's been the first running back out there, but going to the UCF game, going to the Texas Tech game, maybe now is the time that we do see Hansen or Jackson start the game. Obviously, it's been working having Abu start and having the other running backs finish, but now might be the time to maybe try something different just to start the games off a little better, because it seems like Iowa State kind of struggles on both sides of the ball early, but then they start to really pick things up throughout the rest of the game.
Yeah, I do agree. It's probably the best time to give the mantle to somebody else. Like when you see it, Jack Trice Stadium, and they go through the starting lineup, we always see Abu Samad, but I feel like, I mean, I know what Carson Hansen obviously did this Saturday, but I'd still feel like give the slight edge just to Jalen Jackson, because, he still got 12 carries. While it didn't result in much, like 19 yards, he still last game, led the team obviously in Baylor, and obviously all the other games has been crucial on runs. So if I were to choose right now, and I don't know about you guys, I'd probably say if we were to see starting running back for UCF, and at least for the foreseeable future, I think it should be Jalen Jackson.
And you can only live off the snow Farmageddon for so long. He had 276 yards in that game, but when you go back and look, it was again a crowded running back room, but there was a lot of games where he didn't produce in those either, and we see that it's very boom or bust, and this season it's been more bust. It's the bouncing the ball outside. It's just the inability to get the tough yards. You can't go for 80 yards every play, and unfortunately, that's what he's been trying to do, and it's just not working.
I was going to bring that up too, the bouncing to the outside. It feels like Abu is just running laterally, like every time he gets the ball. Like he doesn't cut upfield, and I know that that's something that Hansen does. He just feels like he puts his head down and just plows forward sometimes, and it works. He gets yards, and he's getting touchdowns now. Jalen Jackson, he's more of like the shifty type of running back. He can make people miss. We saw it in the Baylor game on both of his scores. So obviously, again, I've talked about it before with the experience part of it. Abu is just a sophomore, but so is Carson Hansen. And I think Hansen is definitely looking like the better of the two of those guys right now too.
Yeah, and especially that Hansen didn't really have a lot of time to play last year. Campbell talked about he was injured for most of the year and didn't really have that time to really show out because, well, obviously we already had guys like Cartavius Norton, Eli Sanders, and then the upcoming of Abu Sama. So even when he did play, he was behind three different guys who were getting looks instead of him. So I think, and you're just talking about, I think Abu should take a back seat, and having Carson and Jalen be ahead of him.
It makes you wonder, too, if Hansen was able to play more last year, what he'd be able to do now, if he did have that bit more of like a full season of experience. Yeah. But, I feel like that's enough on the running game. We kind of talk about every point there. Rocco also did run the ball 8 times, but had 0 yards, though, because of sacks and everything.
Yeah. They need to I hate that about college football.
Yeah,
Take
I know.
the sacks out of rushing yards.
Because he had a lot of runs that, moved the ball forward, got first downs. I feel like they ran him a lot more in this game than in other ones.
You just see that all the time. It just bothers me. I don't like it.
I agree, yeah. And even it shows on ESPN his longest rush was for 4, but it shows 0 yards. So, yeah, I agree. It's kind of...
Take sacks out of it.
Yeah. Jalen Knoll...
If I were the NCAA leader, that's what my first order of business would be.
That over anything else.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Jalen Knoll also had a carry for 9 yards. On the receiving side of things, he was the only receiver in this game to catch a touchdown. He had 5 catches for 77 yards. But then on the other side of that, Jaden Higgins was the leader in reception yards and receptions, 6 for 102 yards. So once again, we had that two-headed monster in the receiving room. But some other guys did have some flashes too.
Yeah, I finally got to see the reemergence of Eli Green. Rocco, I was able to actually find him this time around at West Virginia. 2 catches for 46 yards, and longest being that 34-yard catch, which was...
Those were some crucial plays back-to-back.
Oh, yeah, those are huge.
Back-to-back, I was about to say, correct me if I'm wrong, that was back-to-back. Yep. I think right after the interception, too. Was it right after Green's first interception, maybe?
Yep. Yeah, the one to Porter, right? Or no?
To one the...
Patton,
Jameson Patton, yes.
Yeah.
I think, after the first one. And that really, that pick... Those 2 plays set up a touchdown drive, and that's really what put this game away.
Yeah.
And then you got Carson Brown, who did get a couple catches in Houston, got another catch on Saturday, got 1 catch for 12 yards. He's proven to be useful in this offense as well. And then, Gabe Burkle got a catch for 7 yards. Bramer only got 1 catch for 15 yards, despite having him in the players to watch. I thought he would be performing better, but, still worked nonetheless. And Jalen Jackson, 2 catches for 6 yards. So Rocco was able to spread the ball around a lot more than he usually would, especially last game. He only had 4 receivers because he only threw to Higgins, Knoll, Bramer, and Tyler Moore.
Another big takeaway with the receiving game, Higgins specifically didn't catch a touchdown. So unfortunately, his streak of 7 straight games with a touchdown is now over. couldn't get it to 8. But it was a good run while it lasted.
It was a phenomenal run. And, that last offensive play for Iowa State was before the knees. He lofted up to Higgins, and he almost got it. He was a couple yards short. I was like, ooh.
I thought they might throw him a fade on the next play, just one more try. But as one record goes, though, we did have one record be tied in this game by fellow receiver Jalen Noel, who tied Breece Hall and Akeem Butler for 7 50-plus yard touchdowns in his career. So be on the lookout for that. If he scores another deep one this year, he'll break the all-time record.
Yeah, that play just looked like a blown coverage from West Virginia.
Completely
they had one safety deep on the opposite side. Like, Jalen Noel's going to burn you 10 times out of 10 when that happens.
It was beautiful.
It happened against Iowa, too, on his 75-yard score in that game.
Could happen against UCF, too. We're blown coverage, and, we're going to take advantage of that every time. Looks like Rocco has taken advantage of it every time, and it's worked out for points, so take it any day.
I don't know what Mauser does to him, but
it's something, man.
He's got some voodoo magic.
No.
He does. I'm happy that, they put him in the position he is because it's working. I'm liking what Mouse is doing.
No, he's been great this year.
Agreed.
Did you see that clip of him? I think it was after the Baylor game, right, where he's like, "We haven't even opened up our playbook."
Yeah.
He's like, "They have no answers."
Yep.
We haven't
like,
even.
What happens
we're
when
on
you
page
open
2
up the playbook? Like,
I wonder. Yeah.
People are going to be really scared, probably.
He's sandbag until Kansas State comes around.
I mean, looking at the schedule, like that's probably the toughest game left.
Yeah, some games have. We might talk about it later, but some games down the line may have gotten easier over the past week.
Some have gotten easier. Some might have gotten tougher too, though. So
yeah, there is one other team that looks better than I thought they were at the beginning of the season.
Yeah,
as well.
There's a couple that I'm a little leery about.
Yeah.
Texas Tech and Cincy will be a good test.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's
those
exactly
two
those two.
And then Kansas looks like crap, and Utah looks like crap too.
Yeah.
Kansas State.
We joked about it a lot, but
Utah talked a lot of crap, and now they are the crap.
We joked about it a lot the last couple of weeks, but Cam Rising's never going to play college football.
Speaking of, so we have a whole segment on Cam Rising in an 8th year of medical fresh red shirt, man.
Gosh.
I couldn't. Man, just get a real job at this point.
Spend time with your grandkids, bro.
Yeah, you're
start a LinkedIn page or something.
Okay, Stetson Bennett, man.
Just put the fries in the bag.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
I'm sure he'll be like on their coaching staff or something this year.
Yeah. Well, kind of went through the offense. How about that defense performance, though? It really came through in the second half again. Like, again, it was like a typical Iowa State type of game. You spot the early touchdown. You make the adjustments. You hold them to 3 points. And then they score that garbage time touchdown at the end of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a stat I saw on Twitter somewhere. It's like second half points allowed. Like when the touchdowns were scored, it was in garbage time because Iowa State already had the win in hand, and it's just been phenomenal what they've been able to do. Like I feel like it's unheard.
It's like what 4.3 or something like that. I think it said.
I think it's somewhere on that area, but still, like there's not enough words you can put into this about what Jen Haycock's been able to do with this defense here, and it's always odd to see because you think when you see that first drive end up in a touchdown, you think, oh, man, this is going to be like how the game's going to go, really. But no, he makes adjustments right away because you get to really see how that offense works. It's kind of a way to like learn what they do initially just to see what they do against their defense. And then you learn, you make adjustments, and you lock down. And that's what they've had done this whole season. And it's just beautiful to watch.
No, yeah, you start to get nervous after that first drive. They drive right down the field running the ball, and you're like, oh, come on, man. It felt like that West Virginia was going to be able to do that all game, but they weren't. The running backs really couldn't run the ball at all very much after the first quarter. Jaheim White, 12 carries, 46 yards. C.J. Donaldson, 9 carries, 17 yards. I mean, that's only 63 yards on 21 attempts from the running backs. And I think Garrett Green played good in this game.
He did.
He ran the ball for 10 times, 87 yards, and he had the 2 picks, but outside of that, I think he was doing a pretty good job throwing the ball too. Yeah. That's where I was most concerned with the defense. It felt like there was a lot of wide open crossing routes a lot of the time, and maybe that's something to do with the linebackers, maybe not dropping back far enough, or just being inexperienced when it comes to the pass game, maybe focusing a little too hard on clamping down on the run. But other than that, I mean, just showing the ability to stop the run with these young linebackers who are getting better and better and better every single week was really encouraging.
Yeah, I like that they've been stepping up. But yeah, again, it's probably that, inexperience still that kind of showed at times in the game of, like you said, those open routes. But Garrett Green, once again, he was a dual threat quarterback, and he showed that once again. The 206 passing yards. He did throw over 50% completions. He did have a touchdown pass, and he led the way in rushing in this game. I mean, he just felt like untacklable in like the first quarter, first half, really.
He's an athlete.
Yeah, he's good. He's a good quarterback.
He was in his element, especially playing
Yeah.
at night with those Coal Rush uniforms. Packed West Virginia Stadium. He got to really like establish his way through like the first quarter, I think. And then afterwards, it kind of went down, just slowly downhill. Obviously, the interceptions kind of sealed it for his day. But
I feel like. Sorry, go ahead.
And I was gonna say that's what then the Iowa State defense got to him.
Oh yeah,
though.
yeah.
Eventually the Iowa State got up because the running game was slowed down and he's forced to drop back to pass consistently, and that's where things started to fall apart.
Yep, I was gonna say that too. Like when you're forced to throw the ball like that, of course you're gonna make mistakes against this defense. But I mean, one of them was a tip pass. That first one was, and then Jontez Williams gets that second one for his third game in a row with an interception. This dude's been on fire.
Yeah, I'm assuming he's going to keep that hot streak going against the UCF team that doesn't have the quarterback situation figured out right now. But
yeah,
if UCF was smart, they don't throw the ball a single time.
Well, they have to throw the ball because knowing what John Haycock's been able to do with the adjustments, I'm assuming UCF will probably, if we're going off of what we've seen this season, I'm assuming UCF's going to go down the field and score on their first drive because that's what every game has looked like so far. But otherwise, I feel like, because, we thought Jaheim White and C.J. Donaldson were going to be a problem on the ground, along with Garrett Green. But see what happened, like what Caden said. Only 21 carries for 63 yards combined from those two running backs. So, I mean, we'll get to UCF obviously later, but, just talking about more, Jontez Williams, that guy stepped up in a huge way in terms of interceptions.
Yeah. Another guy who stepped up in this game, too, Rylan Barnes. Mm-hmm. How about him? 9 total tackles, 4 solo tackles.
He's a redshirt freshman, too.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see because, obviously Cale Brzezina did not play in this game. Cooper Ebel was the leading linebacker, who's done more for this linebacker room, who's active and not injured for this season. And then, obviously, another guy, Bo Goodwin, too.
Yeah.
I think he was the guy who was the pass defender that ended up getting in Jontez Williams' hands for that one pick.
Mm-hmm. So,
it's just amazing to see how these, freshmen are really stepping up in that linebacker room. I know I'm going to keep talking about it because of all the injuries. As more experienced guys get hurt, the younger guys are able to step up, which is amazing to see, and that's what you want. And it just shows the leadership in that defense, like Bo Freeler and J.R. Singleton able to help these younger guys out. Yeah,
and it's like Cale Brzezina was the guy that had to step up, and then he's out. Yeah. And so we have to have more people step up, and it's working.
Yeah. Well, there was another injury, too, that happened. I believe it was Jacob Ellis who went down with an injury in that game.
Yeah, Jacob Ellis.
I mean, it's just the linebacker room is devastated. Yeah. And somehow, some way, Heacock gets those boys ready every single Saturday.
Finds a way.
Yeah. I mean, held a good, an above-average West Virginia offense, just 16 points. Mm-hmm. Just 9 points after their first drive.
Well, I mean, really 10 points because their last 6 points was just a garbage time touchdown. Yeah. The game was over at that point. It didn't really matter. So I'll just throw that out there,
Yeah. I think it's really a credit to Colby Cratch, the new linebackers coach for Iowa State, came here this year, was with Iowa State before, but went to North Texas last year to coach linebackers. He's been able to do just in this linebacker room, coaching up these freshmen to get ready to play at this level has just been really unbelievable to see because of the play that they're actually showing on the field.
Yeah, and it was still, again, the secondary that kind of led the way still in tackles. Malik Verdon with 10, and Bo Freeler with 8. I mean, those guys are just
tackling
always
machines, man. Yeah, they're always consistent. You can always rely upon. I saw Malik everywhere on the field.
Yeah.
He was always making plays.
I feel like if you look back on the stats of every game, Bo Freeler has got to be at least in the top 3 for total tackles in every game.
Yeah,
he's been Mr. Consistent on this defense.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that helps the linebackers a lot too. Having Freeler's a pseudo linebacker, coming down in the box for I'd say probably about 50% of the snaps he's down there playing the run, and I think that having that experience just around you kind of probably helps out a lot in that middle of the field.
100%. Yeah. Kyle Conrarty.
Yeah,
missed his only field goal attempt, but West Virginia's kicker missed a field goal as well. So
and he made all of his field goals. I know when I was looking into West Virginia doing plays to watch, he did not miss a field goal all this season. But then, of course, he plays Iowa State, misses one, which is funny to see. But then obviously Conrarty missed one, but then again, didn't really matter in this point. Still made all 4 of his extra points, which mattered the most when we did score touchdowns. And I'm not really too concerned. I know some people are a little anxious about him just because they feel like he just was able to do good for that Iowa performance, but at the same time he's still consistent in making key kicks when he needs them to be made.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about Conrarty yet, but I would like to see some of these go through.
Yeah, that one felt like it was close enough that it probably should have.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not a kicker.
He's 8 for 11. Not awful or anything. He showed he
Mm-hmm.
can kick in the big moments. I don't think there's any reason to be too concerned yet.
Yeah.
But
it's like if someone told me like, oh, he should have made that kick. It's like, well, would you rather trade that kick against West Virginia that didn't matter versus the kick he made at Iowa?
Yeah.
Like if he doesn't make that kick, Iowa State's 5-1, and we're not talking about 1938 at all.
No.
1938 would never be in our minds.
No.
And who knows if we're 5-1 at that point? Because going to the bye, who knows? Like if certain other things, obviously we could have been 5-1 if he did miss that kick, but
that
you
kick
never
set the
know
tone for the rest of the year.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel like that
100%
kick's
did.
carrying the momentum right now.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, overall though, this just felt like another typical Iowa State game.
Mm-hmm.
You give up an early score, things start to click. You make the second half adjustments, and you run away with the win.
Yeah.
It's like if they could go out there and just dominate a full 60 minutes, like I don't know if this team could like lose in the Big 12.
Yeah, that's the thing, because when you looked at the first quarter stats, in terms of scoring for Iowa State, they didn't score. And then come until the second quarter and then the fourth quarter, both 14 points came in both of those quarters respectively. And, it's just, I would like to see them play a whole 60 minutes in terms of like moving the offense down the field. I'd like to see points in the first quarter so that way we're not just shut out like what we did. But obviously it's been working. If this formula keeps working, keep at it. Obviously we are very content with what they're doing right now, being able to be undefeated and ranked 9th in the country.
Bend but don't break, but they broke on the first drive, but then they fixed it.
Yeah. So it's just a learning experience of like learning the team. Obviously, like what we saw, like the defense, obviously that first drive got to acclimate them to their offense, and then flip side for our offense to their defense. So yeah, it's just one of those things that just happens, and they always adjust, which is the most important part.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, Iowa State takes on West Virginia. Number 11 Iowa State takes on West Virginia 28-16. And Iowa State now moves to number 9 in the rankings, which we'll get to in a little bit. So Iowa State gets the big win. Before we get into the UCF game, we're going to go through some Cyclones in the NFL that happened this past week. We had Brock Purdy, David Montgomery, and the New York Cyclones, New York Jets, all play this week. They all had some highlights. Some of them, the Jets, didn't really have great highlights. They lost again. Caden, get us started.
It was a really good week for the Cyclones in the NFL. I mean, probably the best overall week they've had so far. We'll start all the way back on Thursday night with Brock Purdy. They played the Seahawks, got the job done, winning 36-24. Purdy went 18 for 28, 255 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. He played really well in that game.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, maybe outside of the Rams game is one that's off the top of my head. He played really well in that one, but they lost that one.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is probably his best performance of the year so far.
I would agree. Yeah. I mean, the rating says itself, like 129.3.
Yeah.
That's a pretty solid number. Anything over triple digits, I'd say is good.
Yeah. While throwing 3 touchdowns and no interceptions, so you'll take that any day.
Perfect touchdown-interception ratio.
Yeah.
Finally getting back. 49ers have been weird this year.
They have.
But, finally getting back to their winning ways, it seems like they're 3-3, but they're first place in the NFC West.
Yeah.
Because they have the tiebreaker over the Seahawks now, and I think they're going to round into form and kind of run away with that division because I don't think the Seahawks are very good either.
The problem this week for them, though, is they play the Chiefs. They're going to run into a brick wall.
Yeah. They don't have McCaffrey still.
Yeah, no McCaffrey is going to be.
And is it in San Francisco or?
I'm pretty sure.
I think it's in San Francisco, if I had to guess.
Yeah, it is San Francisco.
Either way, San Francisco or not.
I think they give me the 49ers. We're not.
Yeah, it's in San Francisco.
We're not doing NFL predictions, but
I'm going to take
the Chiefs are due for a loss, I think.
Well, they are, yes, but
it's like what you want to happen versus what is expected to happen and probably what will happen. So that's a scenario. I feel like every time we've had Chiefs and Niners, like we want the Niners to win, but the Chiefs sadly win.
It's a Super Bowl rematch, but it doesn't feel like a Super Bowl rematch to me.
The 49ers have just been underwhelming this year.
They just need their running game to be established because McCaffrey, after obviously being out, and then Mason was injured in this game, but Guerrero obviously stepped up 10 carries, 99 yards. So it's kind of just been kind of like Iowa State revolving door.
The Niners,
running backs,
they always have like at least one good running back, it feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
they just
Frank Gore back in the day.
They get him out of nowhere. Like they turn I think it was like they turned Raheem Mostert into he ran for like 250 yards in a playoff game like off the practice squad. Like they just do this with running backs. I mean, no one is Christian McCaffrey, so you still do feel his absence. But they're going to have a guy run for 80 yards regardless, no matter who it is.
But, like, back to Brock specifically, his stats aren't really that bad when you look at him. He's second in the league in passing yards. He's fifth in the league in quarterback rating. Tied for eighth in touchdowns. Like, he's way back in 46th for interceptions. So,
and that's with a lot of his weapons being out for the majority of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, Deebo Samuel's missing time. George Kittle's missing time.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Ayuk had a weird offseason and kind of got off to a weird start. I don't know if he's missed some time, but he practically has because he didn't practice up until week 1 pretty much. So, I think Brock Purdy's been really impressive. I mean, from just like his standpoint, I know the numbers might not quite be as good as they were last year or something, but I think he's been most impressive this year, even though maybe some of the spotlight might be off of him right now.
Yeah, he can get it back, though.
Yeah, he can.
I'm not overly worried yet.
No, neither.
Yeah.
But I think he's a good quarterback.
He is a good quarterback.
He's shown that it wasn't just his weapons because he played well without all of his weapons at points this year.
Yeah, I mean, especially like this game, we're talking about like his best game of the season without a lot of those guys. Things might be going in the right direction now, but again, the Chiefs.
Yeah, the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Those Chiefs, yeah. And now moving into the game that happened in Arlington, Texas this week with Detroit and Dallas. Brett, Caden, what did you see with David Montgomery this week?
Well, first I saw a total thwomping from the Lions to the Cowboys, which was fantastic.
Aiden Hutchinson injury, though.
That was the bad part of the game.
Gross.
That
was
gross.
I feel like that's kind
gruesome.
of like killed the game, just like the mood for the Lions, kind of just like, damn. Like,
that type of feel. I mean, that's the feeling I had last year. The Vikings were destroying the Packers, and then Kirk Cousins tears his Achilles, and you're like, well, this win doesn't even feel good anymore because you just lost. I mean,
like you lost your best player.
It's not quite as bad as losing a quarterback, so I think the Lions will unfortunately probably be fine. But
do you think that whole division, the NFC North, can make the playoffs?
Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
I do think they can for sure. I mean, it's going to be tough just because they all have to play each other, and you think they're going to beat each other up a little bit.
Split everyone.
If everyone goes 3-3 in the division, it could certainly be a possibility. Because I mean, you think one of those teams that could mess it up would be like the Cowboys, but
apparently
they look
not.
like they stink. The Eagles and the NFC East.
The Cowboys.
Whoever comes out, I think the NFC West, I think is going to be a one bid division, as they would say, like in college basketball, one bid division with the 49ers.
Mid-major.
Yeah.
Cardinals aren't good enough. Seahawks, well, probably not. And then the Rams just got hurt.
And then you look at the South, you got the Falcons, who I think will win that division.
Not the Bucks.
And then, or the Bucks. So that could ruin.
I feel like those two, we could get both of those two.
Or maybe the Eagles and the Commanders, whoever gets second out of those two.
Jane Daniels actually playing well.
I think the Eagles might. I think Commanders might just win, and the Eagles might stink though. So
I feel like two of those teams from the North will get those 2 out of 3 wild card spots. I feel like one of those other teams will probably take the other one, and I don't think it'll be a bad year for whoever doesn't make it, just because he still probably will be a successful year. Just they barely made it out in the playoffs because of those teams who just did slightly better.
Yeah, that'll be, I think, the best division for a couple years to come.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to Montgomery.
Yes. Yep.
He's had probably one of the better weeks of his life at this point, because on Saturday he signed a 2-year extension worth $18.25 million, guaranteed $10.5 million. So that's a great way to start the weekend. Then he ran the ball 12 times for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns, extending his touchdown streak to 8 games, which is a Lions franchise record. Beat the Cowboys by 30 on the road. I mean, I don't think many more people are having a better week than David Montgomery right now.
I hate how he got rid of him. I always forget that day that
the Bears.
Our GM decided to let him go and go to Detroit, man, because I'm glad he's thriving. Obviously, Cyclone, I always want him to play well regardless wherever he is. Just, I'm glad he didn't go to Green Bay, But, I'm just happy that he's being able to thrive in Detroit. What he did with Chicago was good. Took a chance on him when we drafted him, and he has been a beast on the ground.
He has, and it's interesting too because he has been splitting these carries with Jahmyr Gibbs all season. They both had 12 in this game. Montgomery outgained him by 17 in this one, and had the 2 touchdowns to Gibbs' 0. Montgomery was the only running back in this game who did score a touchdown, and again, he's finding ways to score. He's finding ways to get yards. He's looking like a very solid piece to this Lions offense.
Yeah.
They paid him for a reason, man.
They did.
They paid him for a reason.
They did.
Usually, I mean, I know it's crazy to say he's old because he's not old, but running backs in the NFL typically don't get a lot of like second deals.
Yeah.
And so it says something that they're willing to give him $10 million guaranteed for a running back that has some tread on his tires.
Mm-hmm.
It just shows how good he's been for them so far.
Did you see what came out about like his mental health earlier this week?
I did not see. Oh,
So-
I did not
I
see
did
that.
see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, he had thoughts of like his rookie season, I think it was, of taking his own life.
Yeah.
So,
Suicidal thoughts.
yeah, I just want to throw it out there to all you listeners. Like, if you need help, there is help for you. 988 suicide hotline. Call it. There are people there who want to help you.
Yeah. It's not worth taking your own life for no circumstances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did not see that, but that's very
Yeah.
brave.
It's
of him
because
to
mainly
say.
about
Yep.
fantasy football reasons. People are just, it's like how it typically is. Like
Yeah.
players don't care about how your fantasy team.
Yeah.
They're just doing their job. So, I mean,
Don't
people
be-
who
They're
do
human
this are
beings.
just like scum of the earth. Like, you don't need to be talking this about player. Like, they're just doing their jobs. I know it's a fantasy football matchup,
Yeah.
man. You can't take this serious. As in, like, you going out there to play for millions of dollars every night
Yep.
to risk your body and your well-being just to play at your best to try and keep your job. But these guys, I don't know. I think
Yeah.
it's just dumb overall. I'm happy he's still, like, got past that moment. And, yeah.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just kind of. Yeah. I feel like that had to be said. You know?
Yeah, it had to be,
Yeah.
for sure. And then now the last one for you, Brett, especially the New York Cyclones. I'll let you
Yeah, take it
talk
away.
about please take this away for your general thoughts about them.
So the Jets are terrible. No, I mean, obviously the Bills are a good team.
Mhm.
I hate it that they're a good team. They're my least favorite team in the league for many reasons. But regardless, Breece Hall was back this week.
Mm.
I'm so glad he had a good game finally. 18 carries, 113 yards, long run of 42, and he nearly scored on it. Like, man, I wanted him to get to the end zone, like at least once, but I mean, he got over the century mark, so that's good enough. Lazard also got over the century mark in receiving, 6 catches, 114 yards, and he did score, so that was
on
good.
that,
too.
on that crazy Hail
The Hail
Mary.
I
Mary.
don't understand how Rodgers can keep getting away with it. I'm just going crazy about it. Even with the new team, he's still finding ways to get this Hail Marys completed. And I know, luckily, it wasn't against our team's Caden anymore. He's not terrorizing the Vikings or the Bears anymore. So, but
That's
yeah,
all
I'm
he's
just-
got. He's washed.
Usually when he does that, though, his team wins the game.
Yeah.
The Jets did
The
not
Jets
win.
don't win games.
Yeah.
The other one, Will McDonald had a sack. I think he's like, half a sack behind Hutchinson for the lead now or something like that.
Hutchinson's
Something-
unfortunately done now. So
He
Yeah.
might. I feel like he might catch Hutchinson.
He's gonna catch him and take the lead, but like there's got to be an asterisk next to that.
Yeah.
I think who he's tied with now for the second place, because Hutchinson will be obviously passed. I think it's Sexy Dexy. He's Dexter
Dexter
Lawrence on the
Lawrence.
Giants.
That's crazy from a
Just
defensive
throw that out
tackle
there.
to be.
Yeah,
He's a monster.
Yeah, but
Mhm.
both of them coming from New York, which is funny too.
yeah. Another note: Lazard, his old teammate, he was teammates with him in Green Bay,
Mhm.
right? The guy that
Yeah.
they just signed,
Yeah,
Devontae
they're
Adams.
traded for.
Devontae Adams is coming to New York. I'm very excited. I wish they got him like a week earlier, though. I think it would have helped.
Mike Williams.
Would help
Dude.
my fantasy team
Dude,
too.
Mike Williams is the biggest bum on the planet, man. Like, to fall over and to have the ball stripped away from you, and that's the pick that ends the game. Like, nah, we should have sent him away.
Mike Williams is also the receiver Rodgers was targeting at the end of the Vikings Jets game, where Stephon Gilmore picked off Rodgers to end it. So
Maybe
They-
he
they
should have thrown the
said-
ball to Mike Williams.
he should not have thrown the ball.
Yeah,
to Mike
yeah,
Williams.
maybe he shouldn't throw the ball to him
saw
anymore.
I saw the report that they are putting him like on the trade block
Good.
after they got
I think,
Adams. They're
yeah.
like,
Good.
they're
He's
making
gone
him
soon.
available to teams.
Yeah.
I don't know if
So-
any team wants to pay $10 million for him. That's kind of the Jets' mistake of signing him for that much money for the hope that he'd play like he was on the Chargers when he was healthy. But obviously, had to make that move for Devontae Adams. And then talk about the Buffalo Bills. They made a move, the receiver for their own, trading for Amari Cooper today. So even though they won, they still won up to you guys. I know probably. I mean, Amari Cooper is younger than Devontae, so I mean, they both will be useful for their offenses. But they had to feel like one up you today.
I hate the Bills so much. I hate the Bills. I hate the Jets, too, for good measure.
Tying the Devontae Adams addition back to the Cyclones, though, I wonder how, because Alan Lazard's had probably the best start to his career.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, best start to his season in his career.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And I just, you have the feeling that his production is probably going to take a pretty massive dip.
I think the Jets are going to suffer now because Adams is on the team,
Force
and you
feeding.
know that Rodgers is going to force him the ball.
Same thing with Garrett Wilson because he had 10 targets, which is the most amount in the game against Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I feel like
Lazard,
I would like to say he try and target to Lazard more because he knows more about Lazard, but at the same time, you can't not target Garrett Wilson, who's been a reliable target for you guys this year.
Yeah. When you have guys who are producing like that, why take the ball away from them? There's no reason to.
There's going to be like less options for like the lower guys, like tight ends, especially Tyler Conklin for you guys. And obviously Mike Williams will not get more action probably.
Brees also caught 5 passes in the Bills game.
yards, yeah.
He has career high, a season high in rushing yards and receiving yards in this game.
He's treading in the right direction, bless.
He needed
finally
it
found something
because
to
the
click.
last 3 weeks have been.
It's been abysmal.
Which I touch on in Cyclones of the NFL article, which should be out by the time you're watching this. So
Hopefully.
everyone check that out as well, where we pretty much say the same thing we just did.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Jets suck.
Jets suck.
Jets suck.
I hate my team so much.
Right.
I'm glad the Cyclones are 6-0 because the Jets just bring me nothing but pain every year.
I thought
they were what, 2-1, and now they've lost 3 in a row.
Yeah, I thought the same for
dude,
Bears.
Greg. Oh my God.
Yeah, Greg Joseph.
Dude.
Greg Zuerlein. Sorry,
Greg
Zuerlein.
Greg Joseph was the Vikings kicker last year. He's the Giants kicker.
Yeah,
now.
Giants kicker.
Greg Zuerlein needs to be fired. Oh my Lord.
Greg the legs.
Do
Greg
they need Conradi?
They need Conradi.
Conradi
would be a better option for sure.
You know, they need Chase Contreras, who's out of the NCAA now. He's right there for the picking.
The fact that stings the most is that he hit the upright on both of his misses in the game. It's like if you're gonna miss it.
That's statistically improbable.
I know.
You shouldn't be hitting the upright.
How does it happen back to back?
Tell me about it. Twice in one kick.
In one kick.
Yeah.
6 years ago.
Yeah.
It's still stinging me.
I'm sorry. Kickers, man.
On the other hand,
luckily this is a Cyclones podcast because this is just like a general NFL one. I'd be going off right now, but we're sticking to Iowa State.
Yeah.
And Brett's depression.
The Jets bring me pain, but the Cyclones on the Jets played well.
Yeah.
They're like the only people that do play well in the
I
Jets
know.
at this point.
I know.
Garrett
Rodgers
Wilson's
also
pretty good,
was
too.
like 6 yards away from 300 yards, which he hasn't gotten in like 4 years.
He would have
He's
if
washed
Mike
up,
Williams
man.
is actually competent.
Yeah.
Get Lazard a real quarterback.
Get us Mahomes. We're not getting Mahomes.
In your wildest dreams.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that covers it for Cyclones in the NFL. Everyone played really well of all the Cyclones in the NFL this week. Not all of them could win, unfortunately, but all of them had a fantastic week, I would say.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the Ravens decided not to ride the hot hand that was Charlie Kohler.
Yeah. Tampa
No
didn't get a tackle
receptions.
either.
Yeah.
Xavier Hutchinson, no receptions, but they're out there balling still.
Mhm.
It's off week.
Hutchinson could get some more. Nico Collins is out.
Yeah.
He
So
could.
he could get a rise in production.
Yeah. Tank Dell.
Didn't happen this week.
Didn't
but
happen this week, but he's in the game a lot. It's all about finding your role. Houston's got a stacked receiver room.
Oh, yeah.
The Ravens have a stacked tight end room.
Yep.
So they're good players in a very competitive
Mm-hmm.
position rooms, and
Which could help them because there's a lot of good players, good experience there.
Mhm.
So learning from those guys could definitely benefit them. in the
no
future.
doubt. Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Well, Cyclones NFL, another week down, and now we set our sights back to the Iowa State Cyclones, now ranked number 9 in the country. Your top 10 Iowa State Cyclones, as are the men's basketball team, as are the women's basketball team, and as should be the wrestling team. Cross country team's also in the top 10.
The only school in the country with AP top 10 women's basketball, men's basketball, and football.
Mhm.
Only one.
Yeah. We are one of a kind. This is literally like you talk about golden age of football. For your column, this is the golden age of Iowa State's athletics. This is
Some schools just can't hang in the NIL era, and Iowa State is not one of those schools.
Iowa's known as the more touted school.
Iowa has none of their teams, none of those 3 teams ranked.
No.
Even in the
Wrestling
top
should-
25.
No,
Not
not
even
ranked
in
at
the top
all.
25.
Honestly, I thought their women's team should have been ranked. But
I think they're the last team out. I think they were the
they got
first
the
team.
most amount of votes.
Yeah.
I think they will be.
They'll get in. They'll get in.
Yeah, it's not a problem.
Anyway, back to the Cyclones. Taking on UCF this week. This is a home game. It's a night game. Black uniforms, but they're not marketing it as a blackout game
Strange.
somehow, some way.
Is the field going to be colorful, or is it going to be black?
I feel like they might color it in just because they're not going full in on the blackout.
Yeah.
So maybe it'll be the helmets that it's like the black base but the color logo, maybe. So I don't know. I'm not.
I would be down for that.
It'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. But UCF looks kind of crappy as of recent. Pavle, do you want to get us started? I know that you kind of know a bit more about this team than we do.
Yeah, the family rivalry. My brother does go to the school, but it's gonna be fun. Having my whole family is coming in town for this game. It'll be a fun time to watch UCF. But yeah, their strong point, obviously, just get into it right away, is their rushing attack. RJ Harvey, we've talked about it, kind of briefly mentioned about RJ Harvey before when mentioning UCF, and yes, he will be a problem on Saturday. They are the best rushing offense in the Big 12. They lead. They lead the conference in rushing with what was it?
They got 1,608 rushing yards.
Yeah, and they average 268 yards a game,
yeah.
And that's just worrisome for me. Just knowing Iowa State's rushing defense has been spotty at times, especially early in the season. I know against West Virginia, they seemed to have it handled with the running backs. At least I know Garrett Green did have 10 for 87, I think it was. So. Yep. Depending on which quarterback does play for the Knights this weekend, it still will be a problem. I feel like RJ Harvey will get what he should, because he's that good of a player for UCF. Obviously scored 9 touchdowns, which is insane.
Yeah.
The next closest on the ground was 2 with Penny Boone and KJ Jefferson and Miles Montgomery. So 3 out of those 4 players I just mentioned are running backs, and then obviously the quarterback. So it is going to be a little worrisome. I don't know what your guys' thoughts about trying to defend RJ Harvey will be like.
Well, to me, obviously he's going to be tough, and he's going to get his. Kind of like Caleb Johnson did for Iowa. I think it's going to be a performance similar to that one.
They're going to have to rely on him, yeah.
Yeah. He's going to be the name of the game for the offense. But KJ Jefferson, should he start, he is another dual-threat quarterback who Iowa State has faced in every game except for the Iowa game. So this is a quarterback archetype that they are familiar with. I'm expecting a lot of read options in this game probably, knowing that Harvey has ran the ball over 100 times this season. KJ Jefferson's ran the ball the second most amount of times on the UCF roster, so more than the other 2 running backs. More than the other 2 running backs who have touchdowns combined, actually.
Yeah,
so
it's odd to see. And I feel like this is very reminiscent of Garrett Green.
Yeah, I agree.
When you look at K. Jefferson's passing numbers, barely has reached 1,000 passing yards. I know he didn't play this past weekend against Cincinnati. Has a 59% completion rating, 7 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, and that's very reminiscent of what Garrett Green had going into this when they did play Iowa State. So I feel like if they do start him or their other options, Ja'Cory Brown did play in Cincinnati. Didn't look too bad, but still didn't do enough to get them the win on Saturday. But I'm gonna expect to see more of what happened on Saturday against West Virginia in terms of passing game won't be their option. I know they have Kobe Hudson, who's a threat, their best wide receiver hands down for UCF. He's got 23 catches for 477 yards and 3 touchdown receptions. So, but at the same time, we've seen what Iowa State's secondary has been able to do, so I don't feel like Kobe Hudson will be as much of an issue. But yeah, their rushing attack is what is obviously gonna perform well for them this Saturday if they do end up utilizing it well.
So I just looked into it. KJ Jefferson was benched last week
Not even injured.
In favor of E.J. Colson, not even Ja'Cory Brown.
Really?
E.J. Colson out. This is what I didn't figure out. He only attempted 4 passes. So I don't know if he got hurt during that game. I am not going to lie and act like I was locked in with Cincinnati UCF. So maybe that's something we can look into. But
I mean, it's an American Athletic Conference game.
And you know how old E.J. Colson is? 17.
Really?
I think KJ Jefferson's 24. He's been
Wow.
and they opted for him. So that may tell you something. And they didn't go to him after he went out of the game. They went to the other quarterback.
So you're telling me that Cam Rising is probably old enough to be E.J. Colson's great-great-grandfather?
Probably at this point, yeah. I mean, honestly. But yeah, throwing the ball is not – they're not good at it.
No.
I don't really know how else to say it. Their head coach is Gus Malzahn, and if you do remember, he was at Auburn. If you remember those runs when they actually had a good team, let's say with Nick Marshall, when they went to national championships against Florida State.
Yep.
They run weird stuff. They ran weird stuff back then. They run weird stuff now on offense. It's very run heavy. It's very read option. It's very RPO. It's going to look a little funky probably. It's going to be something that, though it is a mobile quarterback, it's not going to look the same as let's say a Garrett Green.
Yeah.
But again, if they force UCF to throw, it's not going to go well for the Golden Knights.
Yeah.
Would you say it's more of like designed funky plays, or like they just kind of end up working out like that, like kind of improvised?
There's a part of it that's like designed. They're trying to like do weird. They try to do weird scheme stuff. They try to just like a lot of misdirection, a lot of eye candy, a lot of like make a quick read, bam, go. And obviously they didn't think Jefferson was doing a good enough job in that system.
Yeah, I expect a lot of, like you said, RPOs this game, just for this UCF offense that's going to be looking to utilize their run game. And even talking about just rushing game in general, you know, their defense has been one of the top defenses in terms of attacking the run game, which will be difficult for Iowa State to get it going because they're one of the two teams that share, along with Kansas State, that allow under an average of 100 yards on the ground per game. They average 91.2, Kansas State is 71.7, which is an insane drop-off, but, you know, I do expect a little bit of a struggle just coming from the running back game from Iowa State, but then again, it's kind of running back by committee. I feel like one of them is going to end up breaking out like usual, and then one of them will obviously carry them to another win, hopefully.
So you're telling me that on the rushing side of things, this is basically like a prove-it type of game for Iowa State?
I think it does, yeah.
Because we know how bad they were at running the ball and stopping the run early in the season. They've gotten better at it, but now you've got UCF, who's good at running the ball and stopping the run.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be a good test for the Cyclones.
Yeah, and then you look at their defense in terms of passing, like defending the pass. You know, they're only 12th in the conference, so I do expect hopefully more like down the field plays, more Higgins and Knoll, maybe more of Eli Green or Carson Brown too. I really expect Rocco Beck to really thrive against this defense that has struggled to keep the passing game down.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa State, they're going to have to stop the run.
Yeah.
Because I don't think UCF's got a choice. They're going to have to run the ball.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they can like physically throw. I don't think they're physically going to be able to really throw.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to go away from the run game until they absolutely have to, until they're down a couple scores and they need to get back into the game fast. Because I think if the score is within 10 points, UCF's is they're going to try to keep pounding away and hope that keeps getting them back in the game. Because I don't see them turning to any sort of a first down throw, second down throw. I think most of the game is going to be first down run, second down run, depending on what it is on third down. Anything third and four and less run for sure, I think.
So you're telling me that this game could play out a lot similar-ish to the West Virginia game in a sense? Because, like, it felt like West Virginia ran it a lot on their opening drive, and then Iowa State figured the stuff out, and then they built a lead, and then when West Virginia had to throw the ball, that's when they turned it over through those interceptions. It sounds like that's what could happen in this game too.
I could see that for sure.
Yeah, because if UCF is forced to throw the ball, like none of their leading receivers have over 500 yards. Their top receiver has 477 in Kobe Hudson. Their next two receivers don't even have over 200 yards.
Yeah, and one of them's even a running back, RJ Harvey, 195.
And the other one's a tight end. So when you compare that to Iowa State, you've got Nolan Higgins, who each have over 500 yards. Bramer's there at 160. So receiving game, passing game-wise, Iowa State, I would definitely say, has the leg up in this one.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, just like you said, just even looking at their past matchup against Cincinnati this past weekend, you know, Kobe Hudson led the team, 7 catches for 114 yards, but you know who the next closest was? It was Chauncey Magwood, 1 catch for 34 yards. See the kind of difference right there in terms of receiving. Like, obviously, Kobe will be targeted the majority of the time if they were to pass the ball, which I'm assuming they would. And then having probably like a guy like John Tess Williams on him or Miles Purchase, probably a bit of both. I feel like it's kind of easier to defend knowing there's going to be like one reliable guy, and then obviously the others are kind of coin tosses. And I know some of the players kind of entered the transfer portal early in the season. So, yeah, I feel like it's just if they – like they did against West Virginia, I do feel like Iowa State should be able to handle their rushing attack, but it just depends on how long they could bend.
Yeah.
That's the thing, because they're going to abuse it.
Yeah. All that aside, kind of looking at UCF's schedule in general, this is the toughest game for the Knights so far this season. On the road against a top 10 opponent. This is the first ranked opponent that they're going to play this season, and they're on a 3-game losing streak. And then it doesn't get easier from there. Like, they're going to play BYU. They're going to play the Arizona schools who are looking solid. And then they finish out with West Virginia and Utah. I don't think UCF's making a bowl game, guys.
It's going to be rough, you know. Just looking like we said, you know, being able to at least host BYU and Arizona and Utah might help, but I don't know how Orlando crowds are. You know, it seems like they have kind of a smaller stadium compared to ours, but I can't really say that. I don't know in terms of numbers, but It's just you needed to win that game against Cincinnati. I feel like Colorado was kind of tough, just because of the impact that Sanders and Hunter were able to have in that game. And then obviously going on the road to Florida and not looking great in that game. I think that's why KJ Jefferson got benched, because he only completed like 12 passes for like not as many yards, and then obviously threw a pick. So, yeah, he's been just kind of underwhelming. He transferred in from Arkansas, and I don't think it's going to get any better here for the Knights for sure.
UCF's been just overall really underwhelming this year. I mean, you thought the consensus really top three before the season when it came to the Big 12 was Kansas State, Utah, Oklahoma State.
Yep.
Obviously, Oklahoma State's dead.
Yeah.
Utah's dead at this point. No Cam Rising. Kansas State's still there despite the loss to BYU.
Isaac Wilson's not bad.
That second tier was, you thought UCF, Iowa State,
Kansas and West Virginia.
West Virginia. That was
maybe
your second
Arizona.
Tier. Yeah, maybe Arizona for sure, but they're kind of dead too.
Yeah,
but so is Kansas. So this season's
Kansas
kind of
is like dead.
Yeah, the Big 12's really been flipped on its head this year, and UCF's just a prime example of that. They just have not been good. Like you tell me before the season, I think they're going to lose to Cincinnati. I'd say absolutely not. They're going to lose to Colorado. I'd say absolutely not. They're going to lose to Florida. I'd say possibly 50-50. And I would say I would have said this outside of Kansas State would probably be our toughest home game. And I'm just not sure if maybe up to this point it is.
Up to this point it is.
But I think, just looking ahead, I think
Texas
Tech is better.
Because that's off a bye week too.
And I did not think that after the first couple weeks that Texas Tech would be good. But they've certainly turned their season around.
Especially when they almost lost to Abilene Christian.
Yeah, and then they got smoked by Washington State, I think it was in week 2. And so, but that's their only loss of the season. They haven't lost since then. So
yeah.
The Red Raiders have really turned it around, and that might be a scarier game than we thought. And then Cincinnati, obviously, at this point is better than UCF. We saw it play out on the field. Cincinnati beat them at their home field. So
even though Sorsby didn't play really well, Cincinnati's quarterback threw 2 interceptions, but still he was able to get the job done. And even talking about like what you said, the Red Raiders, they do lead the Big 12 in scoring offense with almost nearly 40 points per game. I don't know if it's inflated from the Abilene Christian game, but still,
they still play the old Big 12 ball.
Yeah, it will be one of those I could say trap games or Cincy for sure, because I know they're both at home, but at the same time, when thinking of the undefeated streak, those teams are going to give Iowa State more of a run for their money compared to teams like Kansas, most likely UCF, and Utah I think still will, just because of the fact that it's in Utah.
Team.
Yeah, well-coached team. Isaac Wilson's not a bad quarterback.
They still got a lot of guys, okay.
Yeah, and then
now that they have replaced Cam Rising, they might actually contend now.
Yeah. Well, they probably. You think. If they just play Wilson against Arizona State, there's a decent chance.
Isn't he Zach Wilson's brother?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He says Wilson. Yeah.
And he went to the rival school.
Yeah.
It's funny. They both stayed in the Mormon State though.
House divided.
And then you talk
the
about
Wilson
Kansas.
Holy War.
Yeah. And you talk about Kansas State, obviously, to finish off the season at home too. So this really is UCF. I think will be what we've kind of seen so far from Iowa State, just in terms of how they start off games, how they finish, in terms of stats. I don't see a way, unless they just crumble on the run defense and they somehow struggle on the offense in terms of getting the ball down the field. They should be able to beat the Knights on this upcoming Saturday, but then the second bye week is going to be crucial, obviously, to their chances of making the CFP potentially, and if they want to make an appearance in Arlington, Texas, was it in December, right?
December, yep, early December.
Yeah.
Yep. I feel like UCF's kind of the 4th team in a row that of the Big 12 opponents they've played that has been, I would say, run heavy with a dual threat quarterback.
Yep.
So it kind of feels like when you're playing the same type of opponent over and over and over again, you get more used to it. That's probably why the linebackers are getting more experienced.
Yeah.
That's why the defense the secondary is still able to force turnovers. And then on the offensive side of it, because the defense performs so well, now you have the ability to say, okay, let's try and mix it up at running back. Let's try and throw in, maybe a throw to a receiver every week, like we saw Carson Brown against Houston. We saw him catch one last week.
Isaiah Olsen hasn't caught one yet. So.
Yeah. Eli Green was back in the offense last week. We've seen the tight ends kind of be hit or miss. So because the defense has had a lot of the recent games against the same type of teams, and they're thriving, that is what's probably helping the offense the most right now.
Yeah. And that was a good point that you brought up for at least kind of panning back to the defense just real quick about the young linebackers. I feel like this will be a huge game for them. These freshman linebackers handling a guy like RJ Harvey is going to be it's going to be a big test. Being able to handle guys like CJ Donaldson, Jaheim White, even going back to the Baylor game, had some couple of runners too. I don't think they're on the same par of level as what RJ Howard's been able to do this season. Because in my opinion, I feel like he was kind of a Heisman favorite in the beginning of the season. Obviously, got outshadowed by other players like Cam Ward, and then obviously Ashton Jeanty, what a story he's been at Boise State. But it's going to be like I'd probably say this is the best running back they're going to face all year.
Oh yeah,
because look at next. I see Texas Tech has Taj Brooks. He's still a really good runner also. But then next 4 games: Kansas, Cincy, Utah, and Kansas State. I don't think they have running backs nearly as good as RJ Harvey. So this will be like probably their best test of how they're going to go up. I think Caleb Brazina should be back for the Saturday, which is huge. So him, Ebel, and then obviously Barnes and Goodwin will have their hands full with just his running game in general.
Yeah. It also helps that they've faced a running back kind of like RJ Harvey in Caleb Johnson in the Iowa game.
True. Yeah.
So they faced a top-tier caliber running back before.
That didn't go well last
It didn't. But they've got film on him now. They know what they did wrong. Now they have an opportunity this week to adjust for it. And I think that's crucial in possibly winning this game. Plus, it's at home, too. The Iowa game was on the road. They showed up to it. They did everything else that Iowa State did worked besides stopping the run.
Yeah.
If they can limit, not like stop fully, if they can limit RJ Harvey, they should be fine.
And UCF doesn't have nearly the defense that Iowa does. So
no way. Nope.
even if this thing gets a little weird and RJ Harvey does get a lot, I think Rocco Becht and the boys have the capability to put up a lot of points in this one.
So before we kind of end off here, any score predictions for the game? I know, what are the odds for this one? So Iowa State's favored to win. ESPN has a 78% chance of winning. Cyclones are favored by 2 touchdowns in this one. So
what's the spread? 30. You said 13.5.
Yeah, 13.5. 2 touchdowns.
I'd probably say about, because I feel like, at least from knowing more about UCF, I feel like, than you guys, just for being I do hold partial fan to them, I should say, just because my brother does go there. But aside, obviously full on Iowa State when they do play each other. But if I were to choose right now, I do expect RJ Harvey to score this game and keep them in the game somewhat, at least early on. So I'd probably say around maybe a 33-17 score prediction. I might change that up, but I still have Iowa State winning nonetheless.
I was leaning, pretty similar to what you said. I think maybe just a little more, just slightly more higher scoring. I was thinking somewhere like 37-21,
yeah,
something like that. Maybe we're sleeping on UCF a little bit, but they've just looked so bad.
They have.
They have not looked inspiring at all, and you get the feeling that maybe if Iowa State gets on them early, maybe avoids that slow start, then they start to maybe crumble and quit a little bit.
Yeah,
as things get tough.
The atmosphere is going to help again. The whiteout game at night was awesome. I think that this one, since it's a night game as well, I think is going to be pretty cool too. I do like the Cyclones in this one. I think they'll cover. I'll probably take Iowa State 35-20. Might fluctuate a little bit, but
we're all around the same general area.
Yeah. I'm not overly worried, but there's always that little bit of what if? What if?
Yeah.
Because every game has looked shaky at some point, it feels like.
It is a conference
besides
game.
Arkansas State.
Yeah, it is a conference game, so it will be more competitive than obviously they said the non-conference games. And I know Houston was a conference game, but then again, that wasn't, they held us only 20 points, but that game was just odd, I felt like. So,
yeah.
Caden, what do you think about score prediction?
He already said it.
Oh, he did?
37-21.
Yeah, 37.
And just little,
whoops.
As we're talking spread, kind of, just little tidbit. Iowa State is 5-1 against the spread this year. Only loss against the spread, week 1, North Dakota. Just didn't put them on it.
Which was expected.
Didn't put it on them enough.
Yeah.
Took the dogs off.
Typical week 1 game.
But yeah, other than that, they've covered the spread every single week.
Well, that'll do it for us. Iowa State, number 9 Iowa State takes on UCF on Saturday, 6:30 on FS1. We hope to see a lot of you guys there. It's the final game before the bye week, before they come back to play Texas Tech on homecoming. Thank you guys so much for watching. Smash that like button, drink water, wear your seatbelt. See you next time.